Ladies and gentlemen, get hyped because it's been a long time coming, but the beacons of Minas Tirith have been lit, Gondor calls for aid, and we have answered. Welcome into the dungeon, the official home of the Doctors of Doom Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Shark Sparks, and joining me to rant and rave about sports is my co-host and former college roommate, Mitch Towley Black. Also with us today is our producer, the agent of chaos himself, Vinny Skittles Santucci. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Why the hell should I listen to these idiots? Honestly, you probably shouldn't. There are a lot more productive things you can do with your life than listen to a couple of amateur friends run their mouths about a sport that most of them have never even played at a high level. But if you're still here anyway, let me give you some background. We've all played in the same fantasy football league together for over 20 years and have been friends for even longer than that. I'm the old man of the group. I'm rocking 4 decades of life and pushing 4 bills of weight. I'm a touch conservative, and I'm from the Bible Belt. And like most old farts, I'm highly opinionated and stubborn in my beliefs. Also, want to point out I was right on time. Mitch here, on the other hand, he's a slightly younger whippersnapper with more liberal leanings, but also refuses to listen to reason when it comes to opposing viewpoints. He was a whopping 50 minutes late, and the first thing he did when he got home was boot up a game on Steam instead of joining the Zoom call. So, while we are good friends, there's a lot we don't agree on, especially when it comes to football, and we can get under each other's skin about that, which our friends tend to find highly entertaining, so we just hope that you do too. Now, without further ado, break out some popcorn and let's get this party started. Say hello to everyone out there in Podverse, fellas. How's it going, Vinny? How's it going, Mitch? What's happening?
It's great. It's going great. But I didn't load up a Steam game. It's just the Crosshair X. But it's close. It was close. I was thinking about playing.
I'm just saying, man, as soon as you called Vinny to say something to him, which again was 50 minutes from the end of the starting, the first thing that pops up on my screen is Crosshair. For Mitch.
Any of the gamers out there who play FPS knows what Crosshair X is. They know I wasn't playing.
But all right,
considering my main contribution to this is scheduling and trying to set everything up, I'm glad that day one is off to a rocking start.
Yeah. Well, what do you got for us today?
All right, so first day, kind of a test run. We're going to see how it goes. First thing we'll talk about is the draft. Because, we had our fantasy football draft like a week and a half ago now. It's been a minute. We drafted kind of early this year. But kickoff is tonight. This is Thursday, opening day. Kickoff's in about 23 minutes. So we got to get through this quick. We're going to discuss the draft, see if there's any picks you guys love, picks you guys hate, anywhere we do or don't agree. So we're just going to get started. Real quick, though, we got to break down our league. Sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
Right. No, I just wanted to stress the league settings because in other leagues I have different strategies, but this league is 20 years old and we want to keep it that way. So the scoring's a little bit different, which affects obviously the value per round.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a standard league. It's not PPR. It's standard. But the thing that is different about it is this was before the time of the flex player. So we don't have a flex here, which means running back value is much higher. Wide receiver value, not as high necessarily because there's no PPR, and quarterback value, more than anything, is higher here than any other league you're going to play in. It's a league where every position matters. So
unless you're in a 2-quarterback league, but quarterbacks here, sure. If you hit, matter the most.
Yeah, obviously Superflex is a different monster, but as far as like individual redraft leagues that are like normally standard, quarterback here is worth more. So you're going to see some crazy picks like quarterbacks in the first round that you might think, well, that's a terrible pick. In our league, it could be a league winner. Not going to name names, Vinny. He popped the cherry on first round QBs this year.
The standard, I think, is PPR. So, again, you will see, just for reference, in the non-PPR, the top running backs do roughly score around the same as the top wide receivers. It's not such a disparity with PPR. So, running backs will get pushed up. Thank you. But, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, also 6-point passing TD. So, again, passing quarterbacks here very valuable. All right. So, here we are in the first round. These are the draft results. We're going to just kind of go down. So we'll start with you, Mitch. Are there any picks in this first round that really stand out to you as either being a great pick or a reach or anything in this particular round that stands out, or is this kind of a standard array for you?
No. For me, this is very interesting. I didn't think the 4 running backs would go back that high. I know we do heavy on running backs, and for me myself personally, I'm just going to bring my own pick up. But Saquon Barkley going at 7 behind Bijan, Hall, and Taylor. I truly don't understand why that's even a debate. Like, Breece Hall's never even put it together a full year. Bijan has so many concerns, so different coordinators. Jonathan Taylor's never put together almost a full year except for like 3 years ago. How could Saquon not be like the number 2 drafted running back?
Yeah, it's funny because you and I actually talked about this before the draft. Like, you and I had a conversation. Neither of us was very high on Breece Hall. We both had him like as a like maybe a top 5 running back, but neither of us had him like
Correct.
the slam dunk number 2, which most people had. And as you can see, our league, he went number
Yes.
2 as running back.
So maybe not necessarily to you necessarily, but I would like you to play devil's advocate for me. Give me a reason why Hall, Bijan, and Taylor are in better positions or better offense in non-PPR league for Saquon Barkley. I would love to hear.
So I think, okay, so to answer your question, so again, I think the main reasoning is touchdowns. Touchdowns really matter in a league like this where passing, receiving points don't count because it's not PPR, and also we also don't do like half yards. Like you don't get like 1.1 points for 11 yards. You either get 10 or 20. So touchdowns are really big. Those 6 points are really big because if you get 59 yards, it's only 5 points, right? Not 5.9.
Right.
So I think Saquon is hampered by the fact that Jalen Hurts, who you'll see drafted right after him in this draft, is going to steal a lot of those rushing touchdowns. When you get down to the goal line, the Jets are giving the ball to Brees.
That's very interesting. Now
the Colts are giving the ball to Taylor. The Eagles aren't necessarily giving it to Saquon.
Right. Well,
I also want to throw in. I want to throw in the low-hanging fruit here, because Mitch just threw shade at Brees Hall and Jonathan Taylor about not completing seasons, and I'm pretty sure that's what Saquon's known for.
But
so
Saquon has almost an MVP season and completed at least 2. Those are the 2 guys that are in their second or third year, correct? McCaffrey has hurt years, but no one's worried about his injury proneness because he's been shown the propensity to complete them even on a bad team in Carolina.
McCaffrey has like 4 RB1 seasons on his back.
Barkley
Saquon hasn't touched that since his rookie year.
Right. He hasn't touched that since his rookie year, but he's shown the ability on a bad team and a bad offensive line to stay healthy. Now you put him on a top offensive line that only lost Kelsey, but they have Malata and Lane Dickerson on the outsides. It's like he's going to be seeing lanes that he's never had before on some of these gap runs. But my question is, you can't draft on based off of last year, right? Because the New Year's different. That's obvious. So my thing is, why were the Eagles said last year to have a bad offense late in the season? The reason was people were saying is what running back they played gave away what play they were playing. So with even going back to Miles Sanders, if Scott or the other guys are in, it gave away the play, and that's why the Eagles were struggling second half of the season because they've already put their offense on film. Saquon fixes that. Second point I will make is if I was an offensive coordinator, you're going to call to your personnel. If you have DeAndre Swift and Boston Scott as your running backs or Jalen Hurts in that offensive line, a tush push seems more reasonable. But if you're the offensive coordinator and your personnel has Saquon Barkley back there, you might be more willing to give Saquon a couple of those goal lines because it's not Swift or Scott or the other guy, forgive me right now, running in. They're all tiny and injury prone. So a lot of times offensive coordinators will call based off their personnel. They've never had a Saquon. That's why maybe the tush push was even designed or originated from. And third, if you ever believe anything about regression, Jalen Hurts has 29 rushing TDs last 2 seasons. Do you think there's any chance there's a positive regression or whatever it's called, negative regression for him, to where 3 or 4 of those, because that's over 13 a year, 14 a year, if he just gets 8 and 5 of those go to Barkley, 4 of those go to Barkley, like what are we talking about here? Like,
yeah, I think the other counterpoint too is just that new team, right? Anytime you put somebody on a new team, there is going to be a hesitation there just because you don't know what they're going to do. Look later on down, you see Derrick Henry going at 12. Derrick Henry used to be a windmill slam, early pick, yep. Right? But like he falls to 12 because same thing. Is Lamar going to take some of those touchdowns? The Ravens have historically kind of done running back by committee. Now they've never had anyone as good as Derrick Henry, so they had to. But Derrick Henry's 32. Like usually running backs don't last till they're past 30, and he's well past.
Yeah, but Saquon Barkley is 27.
Right. I'm just saying it's a similar situation. Yeah. Those players fell, I think, because on a new team, whereas like Brees, Bijan, Taylor, they're on the same team they were on last year. The pick that stands out the most to me here is Bijan Robinson. Why did that take 1 minute and 43 seconds to pick? You're picking third. You know McCaffrey's the slam dunk number 1. You've got weeks to come up with who your top 2 are and just take whichever one is left. So what's that about? That's what I want to know.
Here's my other thing. I'll try and be quick on it because I'm probably in the future going to say I have 3 points and I have 5. But my 4th point for Barkley would be Kellen Moore. Every time there's a new OC, do you think Kellen Moore is going to run the tush push? The whole thing about New Orleans with bringing in the Shanahan disciple is what did the Shanahan disciples do for the Texans last year? What is the Shanahan disciple going to do for the Saints this year? It's like, well, if the OC can change, like, what's Hill's role going to be with the new OC? But no one's like, what is Jalen's role going to be with the new OC? Are they going to run the tush push? No one even brings that up. But all of a sudden, a new OC is calling the play anywhere else. Everyone's like, what are the roles might change? But all of a sudden, everyone just assumes the roles are going to stay the same, and Hurts is just going to have the tush push under Kellen Moore, who, by the way, has produces amazing fantasy running backs. The last thing I'll say about the first round, so we can move on, is Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry should have gone much higher. I don't. His usage will be lower, but in this league where touchdowns is key, he's going to have so many more chances for touchdowns that it's going to make up the difference in his usage. I don't think there's going to be a regression in Derrick Henry. But we can move on.
I mean, how many touchdowns did Gus Edwards have last year? I mean, it's just
it's going to happen.
Yeah, no. So to your point, Mitch. So I picked fifth here on the Sharks, right? I took
right.
CeeDee Lamb because I think he's wide receiver 1, right? So that's why I took him.
Sure.
If
CeeDee
Lamb goes instead of one of three, well, not Bijan necessarily, but like if CeeDee Lamb goes instead of Brees, I probably take Derrick Henry there.
Right. Me too.
Because like I said, I wasn't that high on Brees, so like I probably take Henry there.
100%, Alex. If I didn't have Barkley there, Hill or Taylor. The only reason I wasn't sure about Lamb is because I'm so afraid of the Cowboys situation. I'm not sure if Jerry Jones is trying to set them up for failure or not. Is he trying to clean house at the end of this offseason and random hot take, bring in the Sanders kid and the Sanders father? I'm not comfortable in the Cowboys this year. That's why I went Burrow over Dak and other league. But yeah, no, that's perfect. And the last it's perfect.
Yeah, well, so full disclosure, so the day I drafted CeeDee Lamb was the day that he signed his big contract.
He signed.
So
correct.
At the time that this draft happened, I knew that he was under contract. If he was still holding out, I don't know that it would have changed too much for me, but I definitely would have had to consider it a lot more than the 6 seconds it took me to snap him off. So
Alex, this is very personal, and we can move on after this. But the reason why I had to go running back in the first round in this league this year is because 2 years ago, I had the number 1 QB in Mahomes. I had the number 1 wide receiver in Justin Jefferson, and I had the number 3 wide receiver in Tyreek Hill, who barely finished third. But it's like, so you give me the number 1 fantasy QB in our league, the number 1 wide receiver, and the number 3 fantasy wide receiver, and I couldn't beat Vinny or Sylvie, who had the Christian McCaffreys of the world. So the only reason I didn't talk about Hill or Lamb in the first round is just because I feel like you need the running back. All right, let's move on.
So I just want to throw out too, like I strongly agree with the running back move. I don't hate the Saquon pick. I think he's appropriate RB5. Derrick Henry is a stud. But I went with the quarterback because every year I have the great core and I never have the quarterback, and so this year I thought let's mix it up.
We could have 10 podcasts on that topic alone, Vinny.
At least.
At least.
I'm sick of every year Mitchell looking at my lineup that's 5-8, missing the playoffs, going, dude, you have the best core I've ever seen, but you have no quarterback, and you lose every game.
It's because you can't control your core's points per week. Some weeks, Vinny, you're scoring 140 points and killing your team by like 70 points. And you didn't need to score that many points. You needed more of like an average. You know what I'm saying? And when you have a great core, you can't control that. If you have a great QB, you can control that. All right, let's go.
All right, so round 2, anything stands out in round 2? Round 2 seems a little more standard, I think, than the first round, but is there anything here that jumps out to anyone? The only thing I want to highlight real fast is just how much I love my dad's team, Sparkplugs. 100%. Henry and Jefferson 1-2, like, oh, that's nasty.
Justin Jefferson 13 is criminal.
I would never do this, but Justin Jefferson was my other one after Jonathan Taylor and Saquon and Derrick Henry. It was Justin Jefferson was right after Henry. So honestly, Nolan, I don't want him to have a good team because he's in my division, your father. But the point is, I rarely after drafts go, damn, I really would trade my team for that team. And Nolan's a team I'd strongly consider trading for. Because
I kept waiting for the wheels to come off because his drafts usually the wheels come off because he takes some homer picks and drafts which Auburn players like Bo Nix, but he didn't do that this time around. So
I would like to discuss a couple because for me, rounds 2 win or lose your league mostly, in my opinion. Round 1, okay. So Garrett Wilson I took last year, and he was not even a top 24 wide receiver without Aaron Rodgers. So does Rodgers literally boost him that far? I'm not sure at this point.
I'm with you on that. I don't understand. Like, there's been so much hype around Wilson because he seems like he's a really good player, but he's never had the quarterback. Whereas Drake London, who Vinny and I talked about before this, like Drake London is viewed as a good player who's never had a good quarterback, and he finally has one. And still, Drake London, you'll see he's not drafted in the second round. Like, so why is Garrett Wilson all of a sudden like, a top wide receiver?
The same thing happened. Backtrack to 2017 or 18. I took Aaron Rodgers, and Vinny took Devontae Adams. And Vinny's like, Aaron Rodgers is going to be garbage. I'm like, then why did you take Devontae Adams? It's kind of the same thing. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to be MVP quality level for him to produce good people, but second round value on Garrett Wilson, and Austin took him within 7 seconds. I mean, I know he's a medical doctor, but oh my gosh. And then the other one is Debo. Debo could have won Cameron at the draft with that pick right there. That was someone I was strongly going with my second pick, but you guys left me Josh Allen. Couldn't pass that up. We have a whole podcast on QBs later. The third thing I would like to pick out is James Cook. So
that's me, just so we're clear.
Yes. James Cook is someone I targeted in all leagues, but the issue is without Dabble there, or not Dabble, oh my God, what's his name? Dabble is the Giants guy. The other guy who they fired halfway through this Dermot or whatever. Now they have an offseason to institute a new play call system. They got rid of Diggs. So now we're in the offseason and we're like, hey, new offensive coordinator, I'm bringing in my system. By the way, this system doesn't need Diggs. Like, what kind of system doesn't need, like, what are they going to do there?
Not just Diggs, but also Gabe Davis. Not that Gabe Davis was, like, super great, but, like, you're talking about the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 off the team are gone.
Gone, not even carrying. They had an injury, and Knox might be better than Kincaid, but Kincaid, due to opportunity, might be the number 1 tight end this year, because something's going to happen. Either James Cook is the number 1 fantasy running back, or everyone underestimated Josh Allen, his failure, his back, or his step back. One of those two things has to be true. Is the offense going to center around James Cook now, and Josh Allen's not stealing 10 touchdowns a year, which is a possibility, but no one thinks Jalen Hurts not stealing touchdowns from Barkley for some reason. Anyways, not trying to go back. But for me, I'm applying, what if the new coordinator, same logic, does give the running back the ball more instead of the QB on those QB sneaks? What if it's a new offense? What if it's centered around James Cook? You just won the league with the number 1 running back. Or you just lost the league because the running back for the Bills has never been relevant for 10 years.
Full disclosure, I had James Cook last year, but he was my RB2 last year, and this year he's got to be my RB1. So yeah, I do need him to take a step up. So there's definitely a risk there. But yeah, I'd gone CD in the first round. I had to go running back round 2. To me, James Cook was by far the best available player left. Like, as far as like upside, like I think Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon's gonna be fine.
Why don't you like Devon?
But I like the.
What is your feelings about? I don't like Mixon either, so I'll let you off the hook with that. What is your beef with Devon?
He's small. He's been injured in his, like, I get that, like, it's hard to say someone's injury prone, but when you get injured your first season, that's a concern. He's not technically the starter. Mostert led the league in touchdowns last year, and he's still there. Historically, even, like, yes, Mostert's old now, but even when he was young, he does great for the first half of the season and tapers off. So, like, for HN to take over, he's probably not going to take over until the second half of the season. And then they drafted another running back, Jalen, who's coming in, and it's like, what if that guy splits? So, like, I feel like Miami could very well be a full-blown committee this year. Like, there's a reason that no one took Mostert, right?
So besides the committee aspect, sorry to cut you off, but I'm probably going to go because I'm excited.
You're good.
And it's our first podcast, and I'm just excited. But so without being salty and without trying to whatever what's the difference between Devon Achane and Breece Hall?
Well, because I don't think Breece Hall's in a true committee.
Okay.
I think Breece is the guy. I think like Breece didn't have like full 20 plus touch games all year because he was coming back from injury. This year he's starting the year healthy, whereas Devon Achane, he's never been the 20 touch guy. We've seen Breece do it like at least in a couple of games. We've never seen Achane do that, and Mostert didn't go anywhere. It's not like Mostert like had some major offseason issue or injury or get traded or whatever. Like, he's just still there, right?
So let me just give you a hypothetical. Mostert's in the offseason goes to the Jets. Breece Hall drops to the second round?
I mean, for me, he would have. Not for a lot of people, but for me.
Same for me.
But again, that also comes back to what I said before about being new team, right? It's the same offense, same coach, same backfield, same quarterback. Like, everything's the same. Why am I to assume that all of a sudden Achane is now going to be like crazy.
Right.
And
the
also,
only difference,
regression to the mean. You talked about that earlier. Sorry, you talked about that earlier with Jalen,
Sure.
right? Regression. He had way too many touchdowns. He's probably going to come down from that number. Devon Achane's not going to average 100 yards a game. That's just not going to happen.
Oh, for
it
sure.
hasn't happened in NFL history. That's just not going to happen again. So if he drops back down to earth, like
Brees Hall can only have positive regression or whatever. Yeah, I get you.
So okay, I'm trying to let you guys do your thing as much as possible, but the Brees Hall slander is a little wild. The dude had 300. The dude had 300 touches, 1,600 yards, and 9 touchdowns, coming off an ACL injury that happened mid-season the year before. On arguably, we all watched it, one of the worst offenses of all time.
So could that not be the Derrick Henry situation?
But he's
Derrick Henry was featured.
Do you guys not see though? Like if you assume that 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns is his floor with a Zach Wilson offense, do you not think there's the potential for 2,000 yards and 15 touchdowns? That's league winner.
It's the same thing with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was the full. Let's throw him in this group: Brees Hall, Derrick Henry, and Devon. Derrick Henry is the focal point. The reason why he's being drafted lower is they don't think he's going to be the focal point in the Ravens. But in a touchdown-dependent league, like the TDs matter, he's going to be more in that. Brees Hall will have more opportunities for touchdowns. But name me a time when Nathaniel Hackett has ever used one running back. Name me a time. Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett won 2.5 MVPs together. They got snaked on the third. That's a whole nother podcast. And they won multiple MVPs, went to NFC championships together. Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay to rejoin Hackett. What in the world thinks they're going to feature
my argument is 3 words: free Aaron Jones. That was the mantra of fantasy football for years with Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett in Green Bay. Free Aaron Jones.
Here's my last thing, and I'll try and say it really quick. Okay. The Jets' offensive line is so bad. Tippmann is a true center, a true rookie last year. He'll be a sophomore. He was one of the highest-rated rookie centers. Fine. Vera Tucker is a second-year player. Got hurt last year. Didn't play a full year. He's a good-rated right guard. But listen to the rest of this line. So they have a good second-year center and a good second-year right guard. But their left guard, they got who the Ravens let go, John Simpson. Their right tackle is Morgan Moses, who the Ravens let go. So they got 2 guys that the Ravens let go. And then the third guy they overpaid is Tyron Smith from the Cowboys, okay? If they paid for all 3 of those linemen, then they went 11th overall in the draft and drafted Olu Fonashu, a left tackle from Penn State, okay? So why would they go get all those guys in free agent, then use the 11th overall pick on a left tackle from Penn State? Why? Because any injury to one of those guys, Tyron Smith, John Simpson, or Morgan Moses, the guy they got from the Ravens or the Cowboys, any of those guys get hurt, you're starting a rookie tackle and you have no other replacements. Like, if my issue with the Jets is not necessarily Brees Hall, and you know how much I love Rodgers, that line is one injury away from that team falling apart. If they don't have Tyron Smith or Morgan Moses, who have not played full years in the last 3 years, who are elite tackles, if they don't play full years, the Jets are in big trouble. Whereas if you go to like the Ravens, they just let 3 linemen go, including Zietler, who went to the Lions, because they've drafted so well and they have so many good replacements. Like, I would rather trust Arbaugh and that running scheme and that offensive line than go to the Jets, who just fucking grabbed. Excuse my language, Jesus. Just grabbed everyone. I can't believe I just did that. Sorry. Just grabbed everyone from free agency. We're arguing a team. Beep. We're arguing a team that literally my bad. That took a Band-Aid of offensive linemen this offseason and are praying that offensive line holds together, versus another team that's worked their offensive line through the draft and let Zietler, Moses, and John Simpson go because they're old and injury. That's the way you probably should be looking at. All right, let's move on.
We're going to hang out there. But yeah, so as you can see, I might be a little higher on Brees than Mitch, but neither of us are super high on him. But yeah, we got lots of reasons for that. But that's why. But yeah, so HN,
I love Rodgers.
HN for me is just because there's too many people there. Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians, so to speak. There's too many mouths to feed. It worked out great last year, but their offense was unreal last year.
Yeah.
And look, do I think it'd be amazing for them to run it back? Yeah, it would. It'd be super entertaining to watch. I'm just not sold that's going to happen. Also, when we're commenting on your Debo, you comment on this might be a great pick of the draft.
That might be the league winner right there.
Worth noting, when he drafted Debo, this was before Ayuk signed. Now Ayuk has since signed. It probably changes the value there. But this pick was made before Ayuk had re-signed.
Do you think Ayuk signing changes the value? So, like, if Devontae Smith wasn't there, A.J. Brown's a better player?
No,
Debo
but
plays a
as
lot
far
in
as like,
slot.
but I'm saying like, I just feel like being, I think both Ayuk and Debo are both wide receiver one caliber players. So if you
Okay.
take one of them away, I think those extra, they're not going to get all
Forces.
extra 100 targets, right? But if they pick up an
Right,
extra
right.
20, 30 targets, that's a big game.
Okay. Okay.
So that's all I meant. Anyway,
Ayuk's kind of an injury, but also is Debo, so it doesn't matter. All right, let's.
all right, third round. This is anything jumping out here. I have one that I want to highlight actually.
Go for it.
You and your brother taking a year and a half to pick. My God, you took 3
So-
minutes to take DK Metcalf of all people. So what's the deal with the DK Metcalf pick? Because that's
It almost took him just as long to draft DK as it did to show up to the podcast today.
Yeah, right? Okay, so two things here. One, the only person I talked to before draft about DoD league, this league, is my younger brother, because I'm a little biased and I want him to get a Super Bowl in this league. So I told him round 3, I wasn't sure which wide receiver I was going to go. I think it was going to be Garrett Wilson. I didn't realize after I got Josh Allen in the second round that Austin took Garrett Wilson like 9 seconds after me. I was still in shock that I had Josh Allen. So I was honestly searching for Garrett Wilson because I thought the CBS rankings were off with the my rank, the ADP, and all that stuff. You know how the draft board's all off. So I was like, I'm not messing up my draft because I can't find a player. So I honestly spent a minute and a half looking for Garrett Wilson. Once I realized he wasn't there, I took a minute deciding on the wide receiver I wanted. Now, going specifically into it, the choices was between Metcalf and Cup. I didn't know if I could trust Cup. That was my biggest issue. I didn't want Adams. And honestly, I might have gone, my big board shows David Montgomery. I might have gone David Montgomery instead of Metcalf there. I just wasn't sure if he didn't make it back to me, so I should have gone Montgomery. But I was never considering Evans. I was never considering Marvin Harrison Jr. And Miles wanted Olave. And because I knew he wanted Olave, and because, okay, hear me out. 2 years ago, I said the Falcons were going to be the fantasy gold, and they were. Last year, I said the Texans were going to be fantasy gold, and they were. The reason I'm predicting this is, where does the Shanahan disciple go? 2 years ago, the Shanahan disciple went to Atlanta. Last year, the Shanahan disciple went to San Fran. They literally got to Nico Ryans the year before, but he doesn't call their offensive plays. They took the offensive coordinator, the Texans did. Well, this year, the Saints took the Shanahan disciple. And so Miles was like, you can't teach me these things and then take my player. So I was like, all right, I'll fucking leave Olave. I'll leave Olave there for you. Beep, 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 beep. I'll leave Olave there for you because we've been, it's just dirty. So my choices was always 100% Cup and Metcalf, and please take the floor from me. Tell me I made the right decision.
Well, so I guess the interesting thing I want to talk, well, as far as whether or not you made the right decision, we're not going to know, right? Personally, I probably would have taken Olave there.
Okay.
If I was in your spot. So
yeah.
No, I've had some up and downs with Metcalf, so maybe there's a little bias there, but I would probably.
We lost you there, Alex.
Alex, we lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Just your
Vinny,
audio.
Vinny, why we lost him for a second. Do you remember me saying last year I said the Texans are going to be the fantasy gold of what the Falcons were the year before? But I was pissed I didn't get Nico. And remember, I tried for Dameon Pierce in every league, but thankfully Sylvie took Dameon Pierce early round 3 and it spared me that. But I was going for Dameon Pierce and Nico Collins in every single league. Matt Black, who this audience will get to know very well, but probably the best fantasy player in our lives, took Nico Collins. And then, Stroud did amazing. I should have gotten him. And Dameon Pierce got snaked. But this year, I said the Saints. This year, the Saints got the disciple. So who's going to get it? Why do you think Kamara's moved so far up when he's just like, do you think the Kendry Miller injury moved Kamara that far up in drafts? No way.
I think that's bias from last year, Kamara being a PPR absolute monster, and people just don't realize that that's probably not going to be repeated. But anyway,
why not?
Back to what I was saying now that I'm reconnected. Hold on, I'll come back in a second. But so I would have gone Olave there just because I like guys who get the ball when you're in this spot.
Yeah.
Metcalf's going to be much more TD dependent. We've talked about how important touchdowns are.
That's why I did it.
Olave is going to get 10 plus targets every single
receptions.
game. You can pencil that in. He's going to get 10 targets a game. Metcalf's going to get 4 or 5 targets a game. It's what he can do with them, which it's great. But I like the reliability and the consistency.
Out of those 5 targets versus 10 targets, how many are red zone targets between Olave and Metcalf? So let's say Olave.
Metcalf's
12 targets.
I'll definitely give you that. I'm just saying for me, I would. at this particular spot, I would have wanted someone that's a little more consistent, and
If
you go for
Olave
the
goes
home run
off,
guy a
Miles
little
goes
later
speed.
on, because I think later on in the draft you can go for those boomer bust type players a little more often, whereas in the
And
middle,
last thing,
so
yeah, last thing I'll say, Alex, is I promise you, Vinny vouched while you were disconnected. I said the Falcons were fantasy gold, and then the Texans were fantasy gold. I'm only going based off of Shanahan disciples calling plays. Well, the Saints just hired the
yeah, no,
offensive.
I heard all that. It was all recorded.
Okay,
You guys just couldn't hear me.
so
So yeah, I
okay,
guess
my bad. So then
the thing I
the
want to
one
highlight.
thing I'll
Oh,
add
go
to
ahead.
that,
Go ahead.
yeah,
No,
no,
go
the
ahead.
last thing I'll say is the one thing I'll add to that is under that offense, they put Debo and McCaffrey in motion like 42% of the time. One of them's in motion. Alvin Kamara went in motion like 8% of the time last year. When he played with Breeze and Sean Payton, he was in motion over 50% and could have gone to the Pro Bowl as a receiver that year. So if this new offense, the Shanahan disciple, is going to bring in, like the Falcons did, like the Texans did, bring it in. I think I messed up by not getting many Saints players this year and letting Miles have Olave.
I was gonna say, if anything, that's an argument for Olave. But I also want to point out that Miles took even longer than you did to draft Olave, so that's kind of
That's
crazy
because
to me.
him and I were going with Cup. Him and I, that's the Cup thing. So I was between Metcalf and Cup because I was leaving Olave for Miles, and Miles was Olave and Cup. Both of us passed on Cup. Maybe because I passed on Cup, that made Miles double down on Olave. But if I went Cup there, I don't know. I don't know if Miles goes Olave or Metcalf.
So you're thinking his thought process was, well, wait, why did Mitchell pass on Cup? Maybe there's something wrong with Cup, and I should pass on Cup, kind of like that draft day movie.
Because we did talk about it before. We knew coming to round 3, him and I both knew that we were going to grab a running back first round because we liked the running backs round 3 and 4. We didn't like grabbing a running back wide receiver first round and then the running backs in round 3 and 4. We liked the other way around. So we both committed we were going to take a running back round 1. I was going to go Derrick Henry, I swear to you, if Barkley wasn't there. So we had discussed the wide receivers rounds 3 and 4, and Miles was like, "We're going to pick the same receivers, and you pick before me." I was like, "All right, Miles, who do you want?" And because I'm biased and I want him to win the Super Bowl, I'll leave him alone. He's like, "You can't talk me up the last 3 years, the Shanahan disciples, and didn't take Olave in front of me." It's like, "All right, I'll leave Olave, but it's going to be for me between Metcalf and Cup." So what I'm guessing why it took him 3 minutes was because he now all of a sudden got cold feet with Olave and was like, "Should I go Cup?"
Yeah, because you fanned on him. Okay, so the one last pick I want to highlight in this round, Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
So you weren't considering Marvin Harrison, and Vinny and I both also talked about Marvin Harrison, but Vinny ended up pulling the trigger on him here. So Vinny, why don't you step in? Why did you pull the trigger on Starvin Marvin here? Because even you said you weren't necessarily sold on him.
Over Olave and Cup. That's wild.
So yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I am not the biggest Marvin Harrison fan. As far as like rookie year redraft, I'm the guy that took the quarterback in the first round. I kind of started to buy all the hype around him that the fantasy football analysts are putting on him. It's just like consistently ranked in the top 12, and from analysts that are kind of off the beaten path that have really helped me in fantasy over the last couple of years, in finding some of those hidden gems. And it came to this pick, and I honestly was going to go Kenneth Walker, just because I don't have a running back at this point. And I thought to myself, I thought that the upside of Marvin Harrison, to me, just fit. And if he hits, great. If he doesn't, wide receivers are a dime a dozen. Mitch knows.
Sure.
I'll have the team that has like Devontae Smith the year he breaks out, or Deontay Johnson the year he breaks out, and they're just sitting on the bench at wide receiver 3 or 4. And so I felt optimistic taking a swing on hopefully the DeAndre Hopkins replacement to Kyler, who just gets 170 targets this year.
I'll be honest, because of your credibility and your history, I was never considering Marvin Harrison, but after this draft and other drafts, I was like, maybe I'm missing something. So I'm not against it. I'm just,
I'm like Alex. I like targets. I'm a huge fan of Chris Olave. I think he's great. He was definitely under consideration. Cooper Kupp, mainly, I just don't know how they use him. I think he's still great. I like him. I've gotten him in plenty of other leagues.
Here's my other thing.
For me, Marvin Harrison, I like targets. Marvin Harrison is guaranteed to be force-fed the football this year. They have nobody else. They have nobody else.
That's my thing is this is a very basic fantasy philosophy. You go and you rank the players, right? What do you think they're going to do, right? Well, how can Kyler Murray be ranked so high and such a sleeper, and then no wide receivers have any ranked points? one of the things has to be true and one hasn't. Either Murray's going to have 4,000 yards and 35 TDs, then his receivers are going to be fantasy relevant, or Murray's not going to be fantasy relevant and Marvin Harrison's being overdrafted. So like there can't be one or the other. Kyler Murray can't throw for 35 TDs and 4,000 yards and then no fantasy wide receivers. So you might have gotten a massive steal. On the other hand, if Murray does do that, there could be someone like why isn't Greg Dortch and other guys being drafted? I know McBride's being drafted high, but if people are projecting Murray to have 35 and 4,000, like Marvin Harrison should be a second round pick and Greg Dortch should be drafted in all leagues. Like, so we're missing some kind of disconnect here is what I'm saying.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up because based on how you were talking, clearly you weren't considering that pick. Based on what you talked with Miles, it seems like even if Harrison wasn't there, Miles wouldn't have been considering that pick. Right. I wasn't super high on him either, and Vinny told me before we started that even though he ended up drafting him, that he was concerned about it in a redraft league. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. That being said,
Miles would have.
Sorry,
Miles would have gone Harrison.
We're 10 minutes into the kickoff of the actual opening season. Do you guys want to keep going, or you want to go watch the game? Because Ravens.
So fun fact, I don't think it started yet. Do you see it? I have on mine that says 5:40 right now.
Oh really?
Well, let's go watch the game. I thought it started at 5:30, but
I think we still have like 5 more minutes if we want to roll it. I can pull up YouTube TV really quick and see if it's actually playing.
All right, the last thing I want to say, Alex, just to your point, real quick, just because it might be a little confusing. Miles would have been fine with taking Marvin Harrison with his second pick, but he knew in our quarterback heavy league he wanted Kyler Murray. So he knew that he wasn't going to wait for the all the way going down the fifth and coming all the way back or whatever. So he knew he was going to go QB in that fourth.
Right, but I meant here. Like I'm saying, in a scenario where Vinny doesn't take Marvin Harrison, and Marvin Harrison's still on the board, does Miles take Marvin Harrison here?
No, not at all.
Not at all. That's what I was saying. But let's talk about round 4. Miles, a noted Cardinal fan, and as another person who's a fan of a team who's not very good, you try not to avoid drafting players who are on your team because then you get screwed twice, right? I want to win in fantasy because I know the Raiders won't win. I try not to draft Raiders. Vinny as well. He's wearing his Raiders shirt, as you can see. So Miles, being a Cardinal fan, taking Kyler Murray here because of what you just talked about, all the kind of hype around him being a sleeper, was very interesting to me that he actually took a Cardinal. But we also saw a couple other QBs go in this round. Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, and me going for the stack with Dak and C.D. Lamb.
Well, I even go next round. I think it's Burrow and someone else, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, this is where they started to really fall. You had 4 go here, and then a couple.
So for me personally, Anthony Richardson's only interesting because of who took him. So I'll leave that out of the podcast. Like, I wouldn't be talking about that if it wasn't Matt Black who took him. The other thing that I would like you guys to talk about real quick is, by the way, Alex, I was going to go Dak and Jaden Daniels if I didn't get Josh Allen. So Dak's a great pick. But I would love to hear your guys' opinion on my pick of DJ Moore over London, Ayuk, Pickens, Waddle, and I think there's another one I left out there. In a non-PPR league, remember, I took DJ Moore. If the whole argument was about, their ceiling, did we not see DJ Moore's ceiling the last couple of floor? I apologize. Let me start over. If the argument's the floor, have we not seen DJ Moore's floor the last 2 years? How does Keenan Allen, who's like 45 years old, and a rookie wide receiver who was drafted like 5th out of all the wide receivers, like 4 other wide receivers went ahead of him, how is that guy going to interfere with a 27-year-old stud who would probably be the best receiver on any other team? Like, he balled out in Carolina. Absolutely balled out in Chicago, and now you're telling me he might have a QB. So I'll stop talking. I want to hear your guys' opinions on that round, wide receivers versus the next round.
Sure. Straight up, I don't think Caleb Williams is any good. Period.
Okay.
End of sentence. I just don't think he's very good, and I do think Keenan Allen is going to take away from DJ Moore in some capacity. Now, like, obviously, like you said, he's younger. Allen usually gets hurt, so I don't think it's going to be like brutal to him. But just, you're talking about putting multiple high quality targets, and also you have like a guy like Cole Kmet who like normally gets a lot of passing touchdowns there. Like, there's a lot of people that are going to be looking for the ball, especially around the red zone, from a quarterback who I don't think is very good. If you watch his senior year, he did not play well his senior year. I'm sorry?
Do you think he's better than Justin Fields?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because I haven't seen him play in the NFL.
Right.
So he was running for his life, making a lot of really poor throws, and I don't feel like the Bears' offensive line is going to be any better than what he had at USC. So
Sure.
I just feel like Caleb Williams is still going to be running for his life, making hectic rookie throws, and even if he develops into a player at some point in the future, I think it's going to be a really rough rookie season for him. And so putting a lot of clout in his wide receiver one when there's another wide receiver one caliber player on the roster now with Keenan Allen. Like, yes, Keenan Allen's old, but there's a lot of teams he'd be a wide receiver one for, right? The team he just left, he was wide receiver one for them. So it's not like he's a wide receiver 6. You know what I mean? Like having another
Mike
quality
Williams,
wide receiver, having a tight end who's a target hog in the red zone, having a quarterback who's a rookie and who I don't think is particularly great at this point in his career. I think all that kind of combines to why, to me, I would have been happier with going like an Ayuk or even a London, who I know I'm way higher on than most people. But like, if we're making this argument, I'll argue for Ayuk then over DJ Moore.
So what I think Keenan Allen does is because he's the best zone running route runner in the league. And what he does is he makes a big difference for DeAndre Swift and the running backs, like he did in San Diego. But for me, like, what's his name? Williams, what's his name? The big, tall wide receiver for San Diego for like the last 4 years. He's been fantasy relevant. Mike Williams, thank you. He's been fantasy relevant every year with Keenan Allen on his roster. Even when Keenan Allen's healthy, Mike Williams is fantasy relevant. So how could DJ
Moore, but Justin
Yeah.
Herbert is leaps and bounds ahead of Caleb Williams in my opinion.
Sure. Okay. All right.
I think it was an aggressive pick, but if you assume that he's going to have positive regression with Caleb Williams being better than Justin Fields the offense just being better overall, he had a great year last year. I don't know exactly where he finished in our league, but 12, I know in a lot of leagues he was like 11? A top 12, 14 wide receiver. Yeah. I think what's crazy, like the real discussion here is the fact that if you look at round 4 and then that very first pick around 5 is on the screen, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk. I loathe George Pickens, but whatever. Drake London, Jalen Waddle. That is some pretty crazy value worth in 5th round.
This is why Miles and I decided we were going to go running back round 1 instead of wide receiver round 1 and find a running back later, because these wide receivers are all here. Miles didn't grab 2 because he went Murray, but I grabbed 2. I went DJ Moore and Dak Prescott. DK Metcalf. I went DK Metcalf and DJ Moore, and those are available in rounds 3 and 4. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
it wouldn't surprise me. I would have
done the same thing.
Multiple of these people were top 12.
Yeah. I would have done the same thing, Mitch, except if it was anyone other than CeeDee Lamb. But CeeDee Lamb fell to me, so I took him. If CeeDee Lamb was gone,
or Hill,
I would
agree. Or Hill.
Well, for me, it wouldn't have been or Hill either. Just for the same reason I argued against HN. I don't know that Miami can repeat the magic of last season.
See, I'm not saying DJ Moore is Hill at all, but Hill's proven he's QB proof. DJ Moore might have proven to us already by the age of 27 that he's QB proof. But I'm hoping. So
yeah, I'm not.
Well,
look, I'm not saying this is a bad pick. You asked me to argue against it, so that was the argument I made against it. I'm not saying I agree. Personally, I would have gone Ayuk, but I definitely would have, like Vinny said, I would 100% take this over George Pickens every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
But I know how you guys feel about London.
The part that messes me up is I look at this and I probably would have taken Ayuk, London, and Waddle over DJ Moore, and I don't have a reason for you. I can't tell you why.
Okay, no, that's great. Honestly. That's fair. No, that's where I was at in the draft. That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
So the last thing we'll talk about before we have to go, let's talk about Drake London, because this is going to be where some points of contention come into play. So I'll start. So Drake London was good at USC, unlike Caleb Williams in my opinion, as a senior year. He was good at USC. He has been good as a Falcon, even with guys that you can't even name trying to throw him the football. And in fact, last year, even with one of those no-namers, he was doing great until he got led across the middle of the field right into traffic and got knocked the F out. And then ended up, getting his bell rung and having to miss some time. But he was doing great before that. The one thing he hasn't been able to do, he's made amazing catches, had good yards. He hasn't gotten touchdowns because Atlanta doesn't score touchdowns. Well, look what happened to Atlanta. They brought in Kirk Thuggins, the OG Banff QB, your favorite. Here's your thing. Last year, in every league that anyone was in, Justin Jefferson was a windmill slam first pick. PPR, non-PPR. I'm sorry?
Addison
was great too, but Justin Jefferson was the windmill slam first pick in every draft anyone was in, whether it was non-PPR, PPR, it didn't matter. This year, same Justin Jefferson has fallen in this league to the second round, and most leagues I'm in, he's like the 4th or 5th. Hold on, sure, but let me finish. He's like the 4th or 5th wide receiver taken off the board, and Addison goes undrafted in most leagues. What's the reason for that? Kirk Cousins isn't there anymore. Where is Kirk Cousins? He is in Atlanta. What's he going to do there? He's going to find a receiver and elevate them. And who's he going to elevate?
You're right.
It's going to be Kyle Pitts, who I drafted, and Drake London. He's going to elevate those guys.
Can you pretend with me for a second that you're 100% right, and I truly believe it? You're just missing one part to add to it, and that is what I preach all the time about systems. It goes back to, is Drake London going to be the focal point of a bad offense and system? Or back in the Matt Ryan days with Julio Jones and Roddy White, Julio Jones is the best receiver in the league, never did great well. How was Todd Heap the number one tight end for so long with Kyle Buller throwing to him? Okay, that doesn't matter because it was all about getting Todd Heap the ball. I don't know if this year with the system, Drake London. That's why I went Metcalf, because the Seattle offensive coordinator came over and hopefully he can get DJ Moore the ball like he got Metcalf. But anyways, off topic. My thing to you is, and I'm willing to do a pie bet, how much better do you think Drake London will finish than Darnell Mooney?
Than Darnell Mooney?
Yes.
I think he's going to.
How are we quantifying that?
So,
hold on.
hold
on. Let's circle back to this. I want to finish the discussion first, and then we'll go to the pie bet because we can end on that. But So back to the thing. Like, yeah, maybe he's not going to get force fed, but even if he doesn't, when you look at what they had in Minnesota with Cousins, Addison was relevant, Hawkinson was relevant, Jefferson was relevant. Not just relevant, those three guys, you're happy to put them in your lineup every single week. So even if Drake London's not the only guy, even if it also elevates Pitts, also elevates Bijan, who Bijan was a flop last year based on where he was drafted, right? Even if he elevates these other players too, the amount that he's going to elevate Drake London, I think, is going to be significant.
You're gonna like my pie bet. Then I'm willing to bet Sam Darnold will have a better statistical year than Kirk Cousins ever did as a Viking.
What? Do you realize Kirk Cousins was QB5 last year when he got hurt? QB5.
Kirk Cousins relied on a loaded roster, and I think he's going to get exposed.
When he was in Washington, he was a Redskin without a loaded roster.
And he didn't do that well.
He did well enough to get an $80 million contract from the Vikings.
Yeah, well, look, you want me to name the QBs right now that are being paid?
No, that's okay. We don't have to talk about that.
But no, I'm just saying, I don't think there's much difference between Sam Darnold and Cousins. The thing Cousins does well is he does create fantasy players, but he doesn't create one exponential. Hawkinson, Jefferson, it was 3 years ago that Jefferson had that great year. And Cousins was hurt for 4 of those games. And what's his name came in and force-fed him. Cousins was hurt last year, and Nick Mullins made Justin Jefferson a 22-point person receiver or whatever.
But then how do you explain the fault? Justin Jefferson, in every league you drafted last year, wasn't he the first player picked, no matter what league it was?
Sure.
This year did he go as like wide receiver 5 in most leagues?
Yeah, see, I disagree. I would have taken him as wide receiver 3.
But maybe you disagree, but like the rest of the fantasy community, experts and players alike, moved him down their board. Jordan Addison.
Because
how many leagues were in where Jordan Addison either didn't get drafted or went like the 12th round? Right?
Because they think Cousins is better than Darnold, right?
Because they think he's so much better that they're no longer a relevant player.
Okay.
Well,
so then how much
keep in mind,
better?
We're not comparing Cousins, and right now when we're talking about Cousins in Atlanta, we're comparing him to like Ritter, right? We're not comparing him to like some other good player that was there. Like we're not even comparing him to like a medium QB like Baker, right? We're comparing him to fucking.
But we're comparing Drake London to Justin Jefferson. Apparently, that's what I'm trying to get at. Is just because Cousins is there doesn't mean Justin Jefferson went with them. Drake London isn't half the talent as Jefferson.
No, but I'm talking about the elevation, right? I'm talking about the elevation of London from where if you look at London's best stretch last year before he got hurt, if you take that best stretch and you extrapolate it over more games and elevate him, because I think Cousins will elevate him, that's what makes London such a spicy pick. I wouldn't have taken London in the second round, but I'm talking about like right here. Yeah. Vinny and I both love London, so go ahead, Vin.
Yeah, I also think too, like if you just look at the player, he was drafted super high. Was he another 8th overall pick by the Falcons? You look at what he did. His team air yards and target percentages are like elite.
Red zone targets aren't.
Yeah, he had, but they never were in the red zone. They weren't in the red zone.
But Cousins makes fantasy relevant players.
He's had 31% of the team's receiving yards, air yards over the last.
So name me a wide receiver.
He's an alpha. He's an alpha on the team. He's an alpha on the team. And I just want to say this, like you keep talking about Kyle Shanahan disciples. He also has Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson.
Robinson,
The
Robinson's a good one.
Sean
Yeah.
Sean McVay
McVay's
disciple.
guy. Yeah.
So with
I get
Sean
that.
McVay, with a guy who deserves a start in the NFL,
Yeah, sure.
Ritter was cut. Ritter was cut by the Falcons, and he in a trade. He was cut cut by the Cardinals. He was just cut after the trade,
Yeah, I
and
agree
he
with
was
you.
their starter for half the year last year.
Why did they
So
go pick up? Why did they go pick up Darnell Mooney then?
I think Darnell Mooney's a fantastic. Who else? Well, who else did they have? Who was their
Nobody.
number two?
That's my point. But
Right.
if they had a stud in London, they don't go pick someone else up. They draft someone like Addison in the 4th round and make them good. But hear me out. There's my other thing. I agree with everything you said, Benny, with McVay. I think that's a great point, and I'll eat crow on that. But the thing is, we see Cousins with Justin Jefferson. Take out that. Who did Cousins make fantasy relevant in Washington? Pierre Garcon? Come on now.
Right,
Like,
right, but
Justin Jefferson might be the
there's
best wide
already the
receiver.
skill on London, is what I'm saying. Like, London is by far the most skilled player on their team from a receiving standpoint. Him and Pitts. Right?
But is
They do
London
roll.
that much better than other wide receivers in the league?
But look at if we just look at last year, right, where he was hurt.
Yeah.
So like he played 16 games, but really only played 15 because one of them he gets hurt in the very beginning of the game. He still had 900 yards. Where did he get hurt? Like, so 900 yards after missing 2 games. That's easily a 1,000-yard season if he plays the remaining games. And then 2 TDs. That's going to go up with Cousins. They're going to be in the red zone more often.
Yeah, but okay, so maybe I'm just a top 1 wide receiver scores 180 fantasy points. Look at the top 12.
We're talking about a guy drafted in the 4th round. We're not talking about drafting him in round 1 though, right? We're talking about
no, I know, but okay.
Like we're talking about drafting him like compare.
But
Okay,
DJ
so
Moore
if we look at DJ
finished
Moore
12.
last year. So we look at DJ Moore last year. Like he had
183,
1,300 yards and 8 TDs. Right. This is great. But the difference is he got more targets because he played more games, obviously, and he had a different quarterback than he has now. So yes, he could be good. But what I'm arguing for, I guess, is that I think London could be on this level that he was on last season. Like I think this is very real stat line for London
then I
this
guess
year
what I'm trying to
with
say
Kirk
is
Cousins.
I don't think he's a 1 then. That's all I'm trying to say then. I don't think he's a receiver 1.
Because like
I don't think he can
look
be
at the
in the
2022
DJ Moore,
look at the
Cooper Kupp.
2022 right for DJ Moore.
Yeah.
60 grabs, 900 yards, 7 TDs. That's London, but just with more TDs, right? London was 60 something catches, 900 yards, 2 TDs.
Correct.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm expecting the jump that he had going from Carolina to Chicago to be similar to the jump that London has going from Kyle Ritter to Kirk Cousins.
And again, I think this comes down to Cousins, confidence in Cousins.
So just to throw this out here too, because I'll talk about this all day. I love targets. So over the last 3 years, not including last year, Justin Jefferson's had 26%, 29%, 28% of the targets.
Jesus.
Drake London's rookie year, he was 29%. Last year, he was 22%. So if with a better, I'm not saying he's Justin Jefferson. You bump up his target percentage back up to his rookie year in a better offense with a better quarterback, he can have 1,500 yards and 5 to 10 touchdowns. I don't think it's that abstract to assume he has a big jump.
I think he is a talented enough player on his own that he's a better player than his stat. I think he's more talented than he's given credit for, and I think he's never had a quarterback. So I think if you have a quarterback that lets him use that talent, you're going to see huge growth. Where a guy like him going as the last pick of the 4th round, you're going to look at this later on and be like, man, that could have been a 2nd round wide receiver. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
But anyway, so what did you want your pie bet to be? Because we're gonna go watch this football game. So what?
We can work on the pie bet for the next podcast or whatever. But I truly think Sam Darnold is gonna have the equal statistical year as Kirk Cousins in the last 2 years. Look at Kirk Cousins' stats last couple of years.
Well, I gotta go back. Gotta go down a little bit to see where my boy Cousins. I had to trade to get him in this league. Some jerk drafted him before me just for the memes. So. Okay, so 2022, he had 4,500 yards and 29 TDs. Last year, he had 2,318 TDs, but only played 8 games. So if we double that, right, if we go up to 16 games, that's on pace for 4,700 yards and 36 touchdowns.
Yeah, but there's no way you can just double that.
Why not?
That's
what I'm saying. Why not? He played 8 games, threw for 2,300 yards,
2022.
Why can't you just double?
2022, he had Justin Jefferson set the record for the best wide receiver ever, and he had 29 TDs and 14 interceptions.
Right,
so, okay,
but he's on a better pace, right? So if you double his passing attempts, that's less passing attempts that he had in 2022, right? If you double his completions, it's more completions than 2022. So he was playing better. His completion percentage was better. He was on pace for more yards, on pace for more TDs, less picks. He was playing better last year. Last year he was on pace for his best season ever.
How many primetime games did he get?
Last season he was on pace for his best season ever. But because he got hurt after week 8, people started hating on him like something happened. No, he got hurt. Right. He was on pace to be a baller. He's on pace to be an absolute baller last year.
I'm going to Google how many primetime games Cousins has this year, and I'm going to double down on the bet or not. Because he cannot play well in prime. I bet you all those 2023 games, he did not play in any primetime. There's no way he had 18 and 5.
Let me ask this then.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy good. That's what I've been arguing this whole time. That's what I'm arguing this whole time. He's crazy good.
He never throws over 30. But you're doubling a season off of hypothetical when he's never thrown over 30 TDs except for once in his career.
In 2020 and 2021 he did.
I have a compromise.
2022 was a down year for him, Mitch.
He barely throws 30 TDs every year. Barely gets to 30. Eli Manning used to get to 26 every
35,
year.
33. I don't think it's unreasonable to think he'd get another 35.
I think it's unreasonable.
What did he do in Washington, Alex?
27, 25, 29, 10.
He has a year of 5,000 passing yards.
Yeah, but he also and Washington he had much less talent around him. I agree, but I think having Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts is great talent. I think we all agree that Kyle Pitts and Drake London's talent is not being utilized properly, right? And we all agree that Bijan's better than he was last year, right? Like he wasn't used properly.
I just don't want to put faith in Cousins. I guess that's my.
I know you. That's what I'm saying. Like, yes, I admit I have irrational love for Kirk Cousins, but you also have irrational hate for Kirk Cousins. And I think if we just look at the stats, you can agree.
Yes.
Like
we need to take the average.
This man was on pace to be. He could have been the QB1 on the season last year if he didn't get hurt potentially.
Would you guys agree to 4,500 yards, 32 touchdowns is the pie bet?
That's exactly where I'd probably have him, like 4,200.
That's pretty extreme for me to take that with a new team. But sure, I'll do that. But yeah.
We're saying the same thing.
No. Darnold has to do 4,500 and 32 touchdowns.
Darnold with the Jets in 2018 threw 3,000 yards and 18 TDs.
So what?
You said that Darnold was going to do better than
yes. I think
Cousins' best year. So I'm trying to find a middle ground. Do you think 4,500?
Yeah, okay, 4,530.
32.
Well, no, we can 30.
4,500 is a little hard. He did 42, 42, 36, 42, 40,000. He's only thrown 4,500 once or twice in his career. That would be the top.
He had
42,
yeah, but
42, I also 45. This would have been 46.
So I said 41, 42, and 30 TDs. I would take that.
We're 45 and 30. Because we're downgrading. We're downgrading the touchdowns.
Hold on, meet in the middle. We'll do 40, 42, 50, and 30.
That's fine. I could do that. But I'm telling you right now, his 42-50 would be his third highest year ever.
Alex, we just went to a 17-game season and he threw for 4,500. You add another 250 to all of his 4,200 years, and that's 4,500.
Oh, that's a good point. These are 16. Hold on,
I forgot about the 16.
That's a great point. These are 16. Yeah. So
then Darnold can do it too.
This is 45. This is 45. This is 45. This would have been 46. Yeah, so it's got to be 45.
He still threw 42 with 17.
45 and 30.
No, this is a 16 game. He threw 42-65. 16 he threw 42-22. 17
I'll take a pie bet that.
Are you looking at the screen,
I'll take a pie bet that.
Mitch?
Yeah, I'm looking at the screen.
17, 45. This, if you
42,
double it to 16, it'd be 46.
Where?
So if you start with 2020, 16-game season, he threw for 4,265 yards. If they played a 17th game and he throws for 200 yards, that gets him to 45, right? Same thing. 16-game season, he throws for 42-21. If he throws for 250 yards, which is an average game for a quarterback, that gets him to 45. But
you can't because the season started 17 in 2020.
Right. So 17-game season, he threw for 45. In this season, after 8 games, he's at 23. If we double it, which is only 16 games, by the way, he's at 46.
There's no way.
So
he's never thrown for
every season since 2020. He's been a 4,500 plus yard.
So literally, you're going to double and give him his best year. You can't do that. He's never thrown above 35 TDs, and you're giving him his best year by doubling it.
No, we're giving him 30.
I'm just talking about the yardage. I'm only talking about the yardage of the last 4 seasons. The last 4 seasons in Minnesota, this 42-65 in a 16-game season. That do you not believe that would have been a 4,500 yard season with the 17th game? You don't think he's going for 235?
You can't just double a season. We don't know, especially with Justin Jefferson. Right, but you have no idea.
But okay, even if we don't count this one, if you play one more game here, he gets to 45. If you play one more game here, he probably gets to 45. This season where they played 17, he gets to 45. So 45.
We're not even.
Why didn't he play 17 games in 2021?
Because they might have sat him because they were going to the playoffs and didn't need him to play the 17th game.
So then you can't just say he played a 17th game. There were 17 games that year.
Okay, well
2021
then
was the start of
if your guy doesn't play the 17th, if your guy sits out because they're going to the playoffs, I won't count it against you. How about that?
Okay,
What
fair.
do we?
No, but here what I'm saying is what I'm saying is you guys are picking 4,500. I understand there's an extra game this season,
We're
but
picking
that would
it
be
based on
the
the
third
last 4
highest.
years of his career, Mitch. The last 4 years.
You
in
said his
Minnesota.
best. You said his best year ever. His best year ever, right there, is 45 and 30 and 29. If you say best combined, if you want best
Yeah, all right.
individuals,
So
it's
best
4,500 and
so
35.
So Sam Darnold beating his best year ever as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years as a Vikings would be really insane, and you guys should do more than a pie bet.
Well,
But
That's what you.
realistically,
I'm gonna bring out the
You
calculator
said
right
that
now.
was the pie bet.
I'm gonna bring out the
but
calculator.
that's
right
my
now.
point. Is we're even getting to that though.
So hold on,
That's
we're
my point.
just
Is
gonna
we're even
calculate.
considering.
Starting in 2020. So this is last 4 years. So we got.
You said it, Mitch.
I understand. That's my
65.
point. Is what we're trying to get to. Is I'm willing to go 4,230 TDs. 4,500 is his best year.
It's
so
not
I'm
the-
saying
hold
he's
on,
willing to
hold
get
on.
his, to his
We're gonna
best
do, we're
year.
gonna we're gonna do an average of the last 4 years combined, only counting games he actually played. So there's no estimation involved. So if we add up, these are the last 4 years. His total yards was that many. He played. Let's see how many games he played in those 4 years. 16, 16, and 30 is 32, and 17 is 49, and 8 is 57 games. So we divide that by 57 games. He threw for 269.5 yards a game. So if we do that times 17, that's 4,582
Henry.
yards. That's 4,582 yards was his average,
It's
average on
I'm
the
watching.
season. We'll give you 4,500 because it's lower than that.
Sure.
So you guys got to throw for 4,500, and if we do the same with TDs, it'll be higher than 30, but we're going to say 30 and make it easier on you.
And the funniest part is, I would like a pie bet that Cousins can do 4,500 and 30 TDs on the Falcons. It's got to be a double pie bet.
Did I do that right? No, hold on, I didn't do that right. I did something wrong. Oh, I didn't do the games. Yeah, all right, fine. I'll do it. I shouldn't because he's on a new team, and I don't like stuff on new teams. But I will.
Yeah, like I said,
we
don't have to do it right now. It doesn't have to be agreed on now.
No.
We can save it. We can save the suspense for next time. I'm not going to change my opinion.
No. But hold on. Here's the question: if we both lose, do we both get pies, or is it just a wash and we pie Vinny?
It'd be more fun if we do. We get to pie Vinny. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
But,
So if we're both wrong, we get to pie Vinny. Vinny, you in?
Whoa, how about this? If you're both right, you get to pie me.
So Darnold equals one of his best years, and Cousins.
So
Cousins
if
has
both
a good year
Darnold,
in
if we both win our bets, we pie you. If one of us wins and one of us loses, we pie each other. What happens if we both lose then?
Then I get to pie you both.
Okay.
All right,
I like
we
it.
can figure it out.
So just so everyone's clear, because we're getting in the podcast here, if Kirk Cousins throws for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns, I get to pie Mitchell. If Darnold throws for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns, Mitchell gets to pie me. If we're both right, if both those players pass that, neither of us get pied, and we both pie Vinny. But if we're both wrong and neither of our guy hits the mark, Vinny gets to pie both of us. That's the pie bet. That's it for episode 1 of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for being a part of it. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope we can do more next time. Have a great NFL season, fantasy season. Peace out from the Doctors of Doom.